She's a fashion blogger, model, and entrepreneur.
She's amazing.
The latest tips on fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, and her lifestyle. And now, here's the founder and creator of Not Basic Blonde, Olasha.
Hi, Aparna. Welcome to Not Basic Blonde Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing so well. It's so good to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored. And also with you having so much incredible experience with Netflix and before that, entrepreneurship and experience in other areas. We would love to know more about your background and what inspired you to pursue a career in law and entrepreneurship?
I have to say that law was kind of something I decided at a very young age. And I didn't think too much about it. I just kept going with it. And it's interesting because when I finally became a lawyer, I thought, this isn't working for me. It's not really suiting my creativity. It's not really giving me any freedom. It's the opposite. It's not very creative in what I was doing. Maybe some law is. And it's not very free. Like you're really by someone else's schedule. And so every few years I switched law jobs thinking, I just found the wrong one. I'm going to find the right job. I'm going to find the right job, like the right fit. Like, is it defense side? Is it plaintiff? Am I going in-house? And finally, after 10 years, I have to admit, I made the wrong choice and the career wasn't for me. And that's a really hard thing to say in your 30s, you know. I did all of this schooling. I tried so hard for a decade, and it's not something I want to spend the next 5 decades doing. And so I, at that time, had been on this Netflix show. I got my book deal, and I thought, what if I just took a year off and wrote the book? What if? And then I could go back. And then I never went back, and that was about 4 years ago. So I feel like I just started understanding that maybe in this world I'm more suited for entrepreneurship and for creativity and for writing and for storytelling. And I don't think I'll ever go back to law.
Totally understandable because it's a lot of pressure too, and it's a lot of stress, and it's definitely high pressure.
Yes, it's definitely high pressure, but it's high pressure on someone else's terms. Like what you and I do isn't low pressure by any standard on our terms, and it feels different when it's on your terms. Like when pressure is something that you're choosing because you're excited about something or you want to create something in this world, I'll welcome that. But if it's something that someone's telling me, like, you need to be in the office 12 hours a day, you need to be working on the weekends, and it's that kind of pressure, it feels stifling and it feels like not fulfilling in the slightest bit, actually.
So true. And also, with you being on Netflix, it's incredible show. I actually watched it, and we would love to know more. How did you decide to go on the show and what happened?
So it's interesting. I tell everyone, be careful about the decisions you make in 5 minutes because they can change your whole life. And I know that this decision to apply to the show literally happened in 5 minutes. So I was at an airport waiting to board a plane, and I was going on an earlier flight. So I was standby. So I had to wait for everybody on the whole plane to board. And back then, I think it's 2018, we were active on Instagram, but we were also active on Facebook back then. So I got on Facebook and I was scrolling, just waiting and waiting. And someone had written, "Are you single? Are you South Asian? Are you really looking to get married and find a partner? If so, my sister is the casting director of this new show, and you get to work with an elite matchmaker, and she's going to help you." And I thought, what a cool experience. Yes, I'm standing here, I'm in this line. So I just quickly filled out the application. Like I didn't even think about it. I did it on my phone in line, boarded the plane, turned off my phone, turned it back on when we landed, and I had a call saying, "Hey, we got your application and we'd like to start the casting process." And I was like, "For what?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, right before I got on the plane, I applied to that show." And then life's never been the same since then. So it definitely was a long process to even get to the taping part, probably about a year of casting. And I don't know, I think the casting was kind of exciting for me because I was a lawyer in Texas and I knew nothing about it. But then on the same note, I was also a lawyer in Texas and knew nothing about it. And I think in hindsight, I wish I had known more. I don't know if I would have made the same decisions, or I don't know. I actually look back on it and people are like, "Are you happy you did it?" And I'm like, I don't know. I know I did do it. So then I made the best of it. But I don't know if I would go back with all the knowledge I have today and have done the same thing. But I think that's also how life goes. I don't regret my decision. I don't believe in regret. I think that each decision we make is the best in that moment. I mean, we're all making the best decisions we can with the information we have, with the resources we have, with the understanding of the world that we have. And in that moment, all of my resources and understanding of the world told me, yeah, this is a good idea. Now, obviously, in 4 or 5 years, I have a lot more knowledge and resources, and I wouldn't have, maybe made the same decisions, but I still don't regret it. I still think that, yeah, maybe wouldn't have done it, but the fact that I did it, I'm proud of myself for all that I've created and the life that I built after it. I think it says a lot about how much I wanted to create and how much I wanted to storytell, and how this actually gave me the first taste of telling my story on a global level. And maybe it's like a high that we're always chasing, because now I just keep storytelling and I keep creating. So it's been really fun.
Nice. So it's very life-changing, and it actually like provided exposure and all that. So it's a good thing. But how
Yeah.
was your experience on it? What did you feel?
My character's edit was kind of interesting because it was pretty polarizing. So I would say that a lot of people in the world loved what they saw, and a lot of people in the world hated what they saw. And so I think that's what polarizing means by definition. But, it was interesting to be the villain. As someone who had been a people pleaser my whole life, who had done everything right, had lovely friends and stayed healthy and well, and never gone off the beaten track, never partied that hard or did anything too crazy, to suddenly be like this worldwide villain. I was like, wait, where did this come from? Like, I don't even understand. And I think it teaches you a lot about all the ways that your story is often stolen from you, your narrative is taken away from you. And sure, mine was on a global scale. Mine was in front of 30 or 40 or 50 million people. But also, like, I think that it happens to every woman, especially every woman, probably everyone, but every woman can think of a time where they were in a workplace or in a school classroom or even in a friends group, and their story was taken away from them, and their story was, told by someone else, and it wasn't the truth. And so I think that it really taught me about the importance of telling your own story, and in all the ways that we can do that, I wanted to explore them. So I wrote the book She's Unlikable and Other Lies That Bring Women Down, and it was about these lies that, like, women who are confident and ambitious don't deserve love, women who are sweet and kind on their presence don't deserve success. Like, they think that we can pigeonhole women into these like roles, and that's what the TV show did, right? It made one of us the princess, it made one of us the villain. And I said, women are actually multifaceted. Women are complex and incredible, and they come with all of their strengths and all of their emotional baggage, and that whole story is a lot more beautiful than the stories that people tell about us. So it's our job to tell our own story.
And as far as storytelling and inspiring women, what can you tell us more? And what is your book mainly about?
So my book is a memoir, and it covers about, I would say 40% or 50% is about the show, but 40 to 50% is about the lessons I've learned in life and the things that have impacted me in my life. Because so many people after the show, like thousands of DMs came in, but one question was very like seen a lot. It was very normal to be getting this question like 10 times a day. How did you become like this? Because the show doesn't tell you who I am. It just plops you down at this moment in my life. But all these women were like, how did you become like this? Like, how did you become just so confident that you knew what you wanted? Like, and I thought, how lucky that I had a whole support structure my whole life that supported that. I didn't know it was unusual for a woman to be raised her whole life, without that kind of support. My family told me, do whatever you want. You want to go travel the world? I did it, and I write about that in my book. I went around the world in a cruise ship when I was 20 years old for 100 days. And then after that, I went to Italy for 3 months to study. And then later I went to Italy again for 3 months to study. And when I said I wanted to be a lawyer, my mom said, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I really do. I decided when I was young. She was like, okay, whatever you want. And I think so many people don't get that. And so many women don't get the support of just making their own decisions and making mistakes in the world and being still supported through those mistakes. And so I feel like I was very lucky, and I tell my story through that lens of all the ways that I learned the lessons that I learned, the ways that I applied them to the show, but also the ways that I want other women to kind of reflect on their own story. Because like I said, not everyone's going to go on a global TV show and be loved and hated. In fact, 99.99% of the world won't. But that doesn't mean that the story's not the same. And I think there's a real relatability in telling the story. And I do tell it mostly for women and to women. I think it's really beautiful that I have some men that are really big fans of me, especially some of the men who have young daughters that have reached out to me have been so touching. They're like, I loved that my daughter got to see you on television. I love that, you're setting an example for her of something that, she can be that strong and she can be that successful. And I think that's really sweet too. I think we have great relationships with men and great allyship in men, and I never want to downplay that. But most of the time when I'm speaking to women.
That's incredible. And you're lucky that you had such a freedom because usually in South Asian culture, their parents are so strict and they want you to be a doctor or something. They just like have these examples, and especially some families that come to us, they're like immigrants and they want to for their kids to be what they couldn't be. So, they set all these examples and all this they put you in a box kind of with their
Yeah.
own what it needs to be, and you're lucky enough to have a support system and freedom of doing whatever you wanted.
Well, it wasn't whatever though. I say that, but I did have a single mom, and and times got hard. And so she always said to me, do whatever you want, but make sure that you have financial independence, because with that you can, have beautiful relationships in partnerships, but if you need to, you can always also survive on your own. You can support your lifestyle, you can be, have a retirement account of your own and all these things. So it wasn't do whatever you want, like go couch surf through Europe or go like whatever you would do. It was do whatever you want, but make sure that you can be this kind of woman. And I think that really did inform me. So was it an immigrant experience? Maybe. I moved here when I was 8 years old. Maybe that's also an immigrant experience. But I moved here with a single mom. So for me, it was more like a woman telling her younger daughters, make sure that you are in situations where you can even tell your workplace, like, I don't like this. Like I did, right? I said, I'm leaving this career. Why could I do that? I did that because I had been a lawyer for 10 years and I had saved enough money and I had created a safety net for myself. And I had that ability to say, I'm really unhappy and I want to try something new. And I want to be able to still live life and not be scared about paying my bills during that period where I try something new. So her advice was not wrong. I just think that the decisions I made, were my own. And sometimes they were right, like I told you, like to leave law, but sometimes they were wrong to start law. And it doesn't matter. I don't regret them. I think they taught me so much. And I think I tell the stories I tell because of the experiences I've had. So I would never want those experiences to be anything different.
That's incredible. I totally understand you because I came here with my mom and I was like teenager and we had $200 and two suitcases and they had to start everything over. So it was definitely hard, but we made it. And
All right. I came with two suitcases too. And
yeah,
it's easy to think about the lives that our mom started with us and how brave they were without knowing what
how
was wrong.
brave.
How
Yeah,
brave.
I'm asking my mom, how did you decide to move on the other side of the world? And well, she was like, I had to do it. I had to do it for you. I had to do it for me because I knew you could have the better future. So I had to take the leap of faith.
Isn't that crazy? That's why I think whenever something gets hard, I think, well, I got so many advantages because of the women before me in my family who did much harder things. And so one of the chapters in my book is even about that, about my great grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother, and all of the things that they did. They walked so I could run, and I think that that phrase is very true, especially for women of single parents and women of immigrant parents. And our sacrifices look different every generation. And there's so much gratitude that I've learned for all of the ones before me. They didn't make decisions that I would make now. But again, like I said, I have all of the resources to make different decisions, and they didn't. And they did the best they could. And they did some incredible, courageous, brave things that who knows if I would even be capable of today. I would hope I would because I'm from them and I was born from them, but you never know. And we got to give a lot of gratitude and make those our role models. I think so many women look to, celebrities or philanthropists or someone big to admire and to be their role model. But I pose in my book that maybe our role models are right in front of us, and maybe they're actually the women in our family that have done things that maybe don't look remarkable to other people, but have changed generations after them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's so true.
Mhm.
And also, what advice would you give? What entrepreneurship advice would you give to women who are just starting or who are just in like having their own brand or already entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So in starting, I would say if you can, take time to develop what your interests are. So not what the business is, but what your interests are. Because I think sometimes we don't know what the business or the idea is going to be until we give ourselves space to really explore it. So like the first year that, I was writing the book and stuff, I was also looking around me and thinking, what do I enjoy? What do I want to do? What do I want to create? What story do I want to tell? And as I kept my mind open to that, but also focused on what I love to do, opportunities started coming my way. And I started saying yes to them. Even when I didn't know how to do it, I would say yes and be like, I'll figure it out how to do it later. So someone asked me, Hallmark might want a movie about a South Asian woman written by a woman of color. Would you be able to write a movie? I'm like, I don't know. Can I write a movie? I don't know. I've never even seen a screenplay like a held one or read one. And so I was like, yes, yes. And so then I came home and I Googled how to write a Hallmark movie. And I watched a YouTube video and I looked at, programs that you use to write screenplays. And I wrote one. And people liked it and people are reading it now. And, they're saying, oh, we might be interested. We might tweak it. But like, I think so many of us think, oh, I don't know how to do it. I should say no. And there's actually like a study about that, about women who don't apply to jobs if they're not like 90% qualified, but men will apply to a job if they're 40% qualified. And so we actually take away opportunities from ourselves when we don't just say yes and then figure out how to do it. Because I believe that all of us are smart enough to do this. Like, I think you're smart enough and I'm smart enough to say yes and then figure it out. And so I'm proud of myself. I have a screenplay that I've written, I have a book that I've written, I'm creating my own docu-series. As ideas come to me, I find that as I'm open, people who, are aligned with me show up. Or before I even know I want to do it, someone's already offered it. And I think that's a big part of entrepreneurship. It's about looking for opportunities, but also allowing the opportunities to find you because all you're focused on is figuring out what you love to do. And if that's at the core of your entrepreneurship model, then no matter how much the model changes into something different, like for you went from a blog to a podcast, it changed, but the core was the same. Your storytelling was the same. Your desire to tell other people's stories was the same. And so I think that you can build beautiful businesses based on your core values and your core desires. And if you always keep that at the center of what you're doing, then you'll always find success. Or that's the hope.
So true. And also like we overthink a lot and we just like our fears keeping us away from success. And like I read a children's book. I didn't know what I was doing. And the idea came to me like one Saturday night and I just sat down and wrote it in 30 minutes and just, published it after. But I didn't think I would do it, but I just did it.
But you allowed the story to come to you, right? You sat there that
Yes.
night and you thought, I like this idea. I'm going to move on it. Because a lot of people can get the idea and then just be like, oh, but I don't know how to write a book. It's a good idea. I'll tell someone. Someone should write this book because it's such a good idea. And I'm like, you're the someone. You are
Yeah.
this one.
They
Yeah.
forget about this fact. And also, like, I didn't have any knowledge. I didn't have, even when I was starting my blog back like 7 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. I spent in corporate America like 8 years and I hated it so much. And I knew I'm better than just being in the office,
Okay.
even though I had like very responsible position, even being very young at
Yeah.
that time. And I was making great income, but still. It was not my ideal job. It was not my ideal career ever. And I just did it
Beautiful
because,
though. But you accepted that. A lot of people will stay for decades. I mean, I
um,
sometimes think, man, why'd you stay for 10 years? And I'm like, some people stay for 40 or 50 years. At least we were brave enough to say, I'm not happy. And that's a really big thing to say. And then we acted on it. We didn't just sit in the unhappiness forever. Maybe it did take you a year or two. It took me a year or two to really understand that I had to leave fully. But the idea, I allowed it to come. That's so important.
I was so afraid. I was so afraid to the point where the universe made me quit it. I mean, because I finished my project before deadline and it was incredible and it was beneficial for the company, but not for me because we were out of work and I was
Yeah.
forced to start my own business because after applying for 3,000 jobs with brilliant resume and a lot of experience, I didn't get any because deep down inside, I never wanted to do that. And I guess my subconscious mind was stronger than you know,
Yeah.
my
Well, I
mind.
think the energy we put out too, right?
Yeah.
This is Bo, by the way. Sorry. Hi, Bo.
Oh,
Um, Yeah, I think the energy we put out does matter. And I think that's a big part of entrepreneurship. That's why I say keep the thing that you love at the core because that's such a beautiful energy. And when we're applying to all these jobs, I applied to law jobs after a year. I thought, oh, maybe I should go back, maybe this, maybe that. But no jobs even really came through, even though I had great experience and everything. And in the end, you're right. Like the universe is like, you're not supposed to do this. And we'll whisper it to you until we're yelling it at you. And then when the yell came, I thought, you don't have to go back. It's scary and you don't know how you're going to, be a creative and you might be giving up a great income to be a creative, but you get to live life and do the things you love. And sometimes I think that the trade-off is incredible and priceless, honestly. Yeah, I don't have the same money flow I used to have. I might in a few years, but creatives make less in the beginning. They do. They have to create and build and start relationships and learn new skills and all of these things. And we also have to learn how to be kind to ourselves because so many of us want to be a success today. And when I first started doing this work about 2-3 years ago, like this, documentary and the movie and the book, people said, an overnight success in Hollywood is 4 years. And I thought 4 years is an overnight success. But right now I'm on year 3.5, 4 of like starting these projects, and some of them are starting to come to fruition, like my docu-series. Right now we're talking to Netflix and they're interested in it and stuff, but it's taken years of developing the show. And so I do want to tell people, like, give yourself a break, give yourself some grace, like have some compassion for starting something so new and starting something that has no guidebook. There's no guidebook to being an entrepreneur in whatever you're doing. There's no guidebook that teaches you to build. You have to build. And you have to make the mistakes and you have to take the time, and the universe has to gift you the right people and the right experiences to continue the thing that you love. And so that would be my number one advice to any entrepreneur. Give yourself grace, give yourself time, and be kind to yourself.
I love that. And be kind to yourself is the most important because when I was just starting, I was not kind to myself and I burned out so fast. And it took me some time after, like it actually put me behind to get out of the burnout because it was terrible because when you're burned out, you can't create, you're not in your fullest potential and you're not in your best. So definitely being kind is very important as well.
Very important, very important. Just for even your own mental health. I mean, entrepreneurship is tough and it's kind of lonely, and so you do have to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. What are the most important lessons you learned throughout your career, like personally and professionally?
Mhm. I've gone through some of them. I think one of them is just moving forward with your decisions without regret. I think that has been the most important because I think it also takes the place of fear when you decide that. Like you said, you could have been afraid that you didn't know how to write the book. I could be afraid of all the projects that I don't even know I'm going to do right now, right? There are projects in the next year or two that I don't even know exist right now. And I can sit there and be afraid of them and be afraid that I don't know how to do them, or I can trust myself. And so a big part of entrepreneurship and even my personal lessons is trust yourself. And when you really trust yourself and you listen to your gut or your intuition or your whatever you want to call it, your source energy, your God, I don't know what you want to call it, but when you listen, when you tune into that, I think that's where you find the magic. And for so many years, until I stepped away from law, I was so busy on the hamster wheel, it's called. I was so busy on the hamster wheel, just trying to keep up, trying to get like progress in something that I didn't even love, that I didn't have room or space to even explore these questions. And it's such like a gift. It's such a luxury. Sure, maybe I gave up some money luxuries, but the peace of mind luxury is priceless. And I have to say that, like, to anyone, I would say consider that. Consider the ways that you could, maybe for a few years cut back on your expenses to be happy. To be really happy. I don't buy designer bags or, beautiful suits anymore. I don't want them. I don't even want them. That's not even something that I am like sad about. Like, oh, I don't do that anymore. It's not a priority because all the things I love are my priority. That was almost a band-aid to cover up that I was working and doing and living a life that wasn't allowing me the luxury of time and space and creativity and rest. There was no rest in that life. So I don't know. I think that's my biggest lesson, to trust yourself and to take the time, if you can, to grow into the things that you love so that you can live a life that feels really aligned for you and really fulfilling.
I love that. How do you think social media has changed the context for love and finding love?
I don't know if it's social media or just media in general, right? I
I
think it's
mean,
even,
like, I guess it's media and dating apps and
yeah,
all of that.
it's all of it. It's all of it. And I think it's changed the landscape a lot. I think so many of us have more options, but I don't know if so many of us realize that those options are also sometimes overwhelming and we take people for granted because we think we can find the next one. I mean, this is the common argument, but it's true. It's true. We just believe that there's like an endless source of people that we can meet by swiping. I kind of think back, I talk to people all the time. One of the things I ask couples the most, and I've always done this like for the past 15, 20 years, is how did you meet the person that you're with right now? Like, how did you fall in love? What's your love story? And it's funny, the past 4, 5, 6 years, a lot of people like Hinge, coffee meets bagel. But before that, people used to meet at bars, at dinner parties, at the grocery store, at a baseball game, at a wedding. And like, you were just like, oh, you just like met and you liked each other? And they're like, yeah, he got my number. He wanted to get to know me. He took me out on a date. We had a second date. It was really good. Like, because also that man, when he was doing that with her, he didn't have 10 other people he was swiping on. He wasn't going home at 2 a.m. after a long day at work and being like, oh, I can find a date for Friday night. He was invested. There was an investment. And even for women, there was an investment that, hey, I'm getting to know this person. Like, or hey, they also know my friends. A lot of the time, it's someone that you knew, and so you couldn't act poorly. You couldn't ghost them. Your friends would be like, hey, why aren't you calling back Aparna? Like, there's a social circle. There was an infrastructure in place that was, more accountable for men and women. We were more accountable because our social circles knew who we were talking to and how we were acting. And I really think that that's missing nowadays. And it's funny when people introduce me to men nowadays, which is my preferred way of meeting people. I think the apps have been really hard for me since the show, um, for many reasons, which we can talk about. But I think what's really interesting now is that when I do meet people, my friends like want the down low, and not the down low like tell me how your date went, but they know the person. So that, was he like this? Did he say this to you? Was he talking about his family? Did he mention to you that he travels a lot? But and I'm like, oh, like this is interesting. Like this is a way that we haven't had this kind of like intimacy with our community. There's a community behind you when you date, and I think it's beautiful. I meet a whole lot less people now because I'm not swiping, but the people I meet are quality people that my friends like and have thought about carefully and said it could be something good for you. I don't know. You have to meet them. There's chemistry and conversation, but I think this is a good person. And I think that's also another thing. Like, I want to matchmake now. I want my friends to matchmake me, and I want to matchmake for them. The last date I went on, my friend had gone on a date with him, and she was like, he's all wrong for me, but he said all of these things that were so right for you. So she texted him and she was like, hey, do you want to meet Aparna? Like, I think you guys are on the same page. And we met. And I thought, I've done that a lot in my life, but no one's ever done that for me. So I thought that was really interesting and I really appreciated it. And I think that I wish that all of our community members could step up more and help those of us who are single. Even if you're not single, like help people that are. Keep in mind when you're like meeting someone cool, like, wait, this could be a good fit. This could maybe, let me just introduce them. Let me take it out. Let me put it into their hands. I love that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned the most important point that dating apps sometimes ruin it for people as far as like the biggest misconception is they think they have many options, but they actually don't because there's a lot of not quality people there and dating apps are wild. So definitely meeting people in person, it cannot ever be replaced by dating apps because meeting in person you can see the character, you can see the person. And on the internet, like on dating app, on the picture, does not show in much character. And sometimes you might miss the person was great by swiping in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't, but
There's a lot more chances that you'll miss someone that you could have a great connection with, but maybe
yes.
pictures didn't show that part of them, or the way that they wrote their answers weren't like they were introverted and they didn't share enough about themselves. Like there's so many reasons
Yeah.
that Simple, like profiles can't tell you who the person is, but if you just met them at a party or at a baseball game or at a, wherever weird place, you would be like, wait, I like that person. I want to learn more about them. I want to sit with them. At that dinner party, I want to talk to them for the next hour in the corner. And we never get that chance if we're on apps. And I'm not saying apps are bad. So many people, like I said, in the past 6 years have been like, oh, I'm so lucky. I would have never met him, but we live a mile away from each other. But we have none of the same friends. We go to none of the same like parties or sporting events or activities. Like, I go to Pilates and he goes to Barry's. Like we would have never met. And Hinge or Coffee Meets Bagel or Bumble gave them that opportunity. So I think there's really cool opportunities on dating apps. It's more of a crapshoot. It's more of a crapshoot.
And how does your dating life change after the show? Because you said you can't go on apps because probably many people know you and they can see that you're famous and definitely.
Yeah, it's a real pity because I do actually love the concept, like I said, of the dating app. And I moved to New York in 2021 after the show when the city was opening up. And I thought, how cool. Like, I'm living in New York. Let me meet new people. No, it went really badly, really badly. So either the men knew who I was, and then in quite a few instances at the end of the date, they'd be like, I can't believe I just went on a date with you. I'm going to tell all my friends. Can we take a picture? And I was like, wait, what? Like, I thought we just had like a really nice dinner. Like, what do you mean you want to like take a selfie with me and tell your friends? And then the other awkward part was some men didn't know. So I remember one day in the West Village, I was just at like a cocktail bar or something. It was like 6 p.m. We were meeting before dinner just for a drink. And he was like, oh, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm writing a book right now. And he's like, what about? And I was like, it's a memoir. And he's like, why are you writing a memoir? Aren't you like 35? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, huh. And I just didn't say anything. The server came over and she started crying. And she was like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. Like I was dating this really awful guy when I watched the show. And like, kind of seeing you not settle made me like break up with him, and like I'm just so grateful to you. Like, do you mind if we take a photo? Like, I just want to say like thank you for like being your true self. She went on, and it was so sweet. I was not even mad about it. Like, this girl was being so heartfelt and so kind, but this guy was like happening right now. And I was like, oh yeah, did I mention I was on a Netflix show like last year? And he was like, no, you didn't mention that. I was like, you didn't Google me before you went on a date with me? And he's like, nope, didn't do that. And I was like, okay. So then when that happened a few times, like something like that happened a few times, either the men would then chase me like mad after that and be like, oh my God, you're famous. This is so cool. Or they'd be like, I don't really want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with being stopped on the street. I don't want to deal with people interrupting our dinners. I don't want to deal with you taking pictures at places and me having to wait for you. Like, I don't want to deal. And there have been some really nice guys that I've met. And after a few dates, they get a vibe of what my life's like. And by the way, it's not that crazy. I was on these shows in 2020, 2022, but in New York, like I get stopped 2 or 3 times a day, which I don't think is that crazy. But these people are like, that's not the way I live my life. And I have to respect that. I mean, it's a real pity. And often I'm like, wait, you don't like me enough to overlook that? And they don't. Like, they're like, no, it's more important for me to live a more private life. So it was nice to meet you. That's tough. All of those scenarios are tough, right?
I feel like those people are very self-conscious, and like strong guy, like very confident guy it will not ever be a problem. And I face that too, but also like it's like for a very confident guy, like I said, it's not a problem at all. And it's just inspiring that you've done all these great things and you're famous.
Well, that's the hope. I'm still looking for him, but no luck yet.
Probably will have more luck meeting the guy in the industry who has the same goals and, who is in the public eye as well.
Or someone who just understands it, or someone
Yeah.
who doesn't really mind. Like, I have so many really good friends, and they're with me, and they get, now they just laugh about it. They grab the camera from the person, they're like, let me take a picture of you too. Like, also it makes it go faster, but they're just kind too about it. They're like, this person's excited to meet you, and you're nice enough to like honor that and not be like, I gotta go. Like, also I think that's rude. And so they're my good friends who are now used to it. I find like they don't even think about it. They just quickly take the photo, watch me be nice for a couple of minutes, and then they're like, okay, and they go back to our dinner, or walking down the street, or like we were at a sound bath the other day and it happened, like, and like after the sound bath, the girl's like, I love you on the show. And my friend was like, oh, do you want me to take a picture of you guys? And I was like, I want a partner like that who's just like, yeah, you love her? I'll take the picture. Like, I don't mind. You want to chat with her for a minute or two? I'll get on my phone and check my email. Like, I don't care. And there's just like a sort of like blaseness or casualness about it that I see a lot of my girlfriends do. So I know it's possible. I know it's possible for someone who really cares about me to just take it in their stride and move on. Like, it's really like 6 minutes of your day at the most, or 10 minutes, like move on. But we'll see.
True. I guess what's the last, I guess what the best business advice you can give to women, or life advice?
I think it's the same, right? Business and life kind of intermingle. I would say the best advice is tell your story. I think there's so many women who tell their story when they're at the top of the mountain and they're looking back at their journey. And I think there's something so powerful about telling your story as you're climbing the mountain, as you're stumbling and falling and taking a different trail or route. I think that was what was so important to me about writing my memoir. I wasn't claiming to be on the other side of anything. I was writing my story from being in the middle of my story and knowing that life had beautiful things ahead of me. And I think that there's a power to it. So many of us wait to get there. Get where? I don't know, but we're all waiting to get there, right? To get the perfect partner, to get the perfect home, to get the perfect career, to get the perfect amount of money in your bank account. But the beauty of our stories are on the way there, on the way to wherever that there is. And honestly, when you get there, it might even look different and you might not care because you've learned so much on the way. So there's a power in storytelling. Doesn't matter who you are in the world. I was a nobody lawyer in Texas and people liked my story and resonated with my story. And I think that's how we connect with each other. And I think that's a business model. Connection is a business model. That is how you will also build the thing that you love in entrepreneurship, whatever that is. Whether it's a beauty product or a service that you're selling, it still is all based on connection, on whether people in this world can connect with you. I know some of my friends who are beauty founders. They're faces of the brand, right? They tell the story about why they started that. My grandmother's recipe, or it was important to me to find someone with skin color like mine that, I could find a product. Like, there's always a story. So in any business that you start, service or industry or, whatever it is, service or product, tell your story. Tell your story. It helps in life, it helps in business, and it's also really important. I think a lot of women would grow a lot stronger if they knew other people like them were speaking on the way up that mountain with them, and giving themselves credit and patting yourself on the back as you go up the mountain. You don't have to reach the final spot in your goal to give yourself credit for all that you've accomplished and to celebrate yourself for all that you've done. And so I hope that women celebrate themselves, and I hope that they tell their stories through their businesses and through their life, and that we all just like end up connecting with each other, because I think that's the most beautiful part.
I love that. And I think so many people are afraid to be vulnerable and tell their story because they're afraid to be judged and by sharing their story, but they shouldn't be. I guess because every story, that's what makes you unique, that's what makes you you, and you definitely can create something incredible from the story.
Exactly. Something beautiful.
Yeah. And when is your book is coming out?
The book came out 2 years ago. It's called She's Unlikable and Other Lies That Bring Women Down.
Okay.
So it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. Yeah, I'm working on my second book right now. It is a novel based on my memoir. So someone read my memoir in the industry and said, hey, in chapter 1, you write about going around the world in a cruise ship when you were 20 years old for study abroad. Can you write a fiction book about a 20-year-old Indian girl that goes around the world in a cruise ship? And I'm like, yeah, that's my life. Like, I can do it. So right now I'm writing a book, a young adult romance about an Indian girl that goes around the world in a cruise ship when she's 20 years old, and she sees the whole world and she's fallen in love and she's learning all these lessons. And it's cool because it's not, now it's fiction. Now the girl has a better, cooler life than me, and a lot more like fun romantic stuff going on because it's a romance novel. But the experience is the same, and the beauty and the wonder of seeing the world at age 20 like that. I think there's something that hopefully resonates with readers everywhere. And young adult romances are like the largest growing book genre right now. That and true crime, which I didn't know. They're like, can you write a true crime book? I'm like, no. They're like, okay, how about a romance for young adults? I'm like, okay, yeah, that one we can do. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I can write it. I'm gonna try. I mean, wish me luck. But that's what I say to every woman. Like, if someone asks you, just say yes. Someone was like, can you write this book? I'm like, yep. Can I? I don't know. We'll find out. I'm sure I can. I'm sure I can.
And where can our listeners find you, your social handles?
I'm on TikTok and Instagram. I don't know if TikTok will matter, but my name at Aparna Shewakramani, and that's basically my handle. I'm gonna get YouTube soon, guys. I promise. Especially because all of us now have to, but we'll see how this goes.
Thank you so much, Aparna, for being my guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yes, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you.